Despite a blustery start and first night at sea in the 49th Rolex Fastnet race, competitors have been making good progress west down the English Channel, with the bulk of the fleet at breakfast time this morning, south of start point. Since yesterday's dramatic, brutal departure from the Solent for the 337 entries, in 25+ knot southwesterly headwinds, and violent wind against tide seas, overnight the wind has slowly eased. It is still gusting to the early 20s, especially around headlands, but is dropping the further west the competitors sail, with 15 to 20 knots off the Lizard, and 13 to 15 off Land's End. While the majority of the Rolex Fastnet race fleet is still toughing it out in the Channel, at 0800 BST this morning, Maxi Edmond de Rothschild was the first all-time to reach the Fastnet Rock. While not a record time, in 2019 she led around the Rock at 0633, less than 2 minutes ahead of François Gabart's Massif. Her time of just 20 hours 50 minutes is almost 3 hours slower, but nonetheless highly impressive, given that this time, the boats have been upwind down the Channel, and then fetching across the Celtic Sea. This time is also not as close with Thomas Coville's second-placed Sodebo Ultime Voile, some 43 miles astern of her. "We have just passed the Fastnet, leading the fleet," reported Charles Caudrelier, co-skipper of Maxi Edmond de Rothschild, with Frank Cammars. "We're at least 40 miles ahead of the second, which is good. We have sailed very well since the start of this race, and are proud of what we have done. The boat is going fast, and we have not made any navigation errors. Now we go back to the Scilly Isles. The last part, with jibes, will be complicated. We know that it is difficult to get to Cherbourg, especially when there is little wind. We remain focused on the speed of the boat, and we will try to extend our lead. We will not be flying much on this leg to Cherbourg."
Welcome to Cowes, where summer has arrived for a few minutes, let's hope. Good afternoon, I'm Matthew Sheehan, and tomorrow sees the start of one of the most famous races in the world, the Rolex Fastnet race. For many, it's the focal point of their season, but as we know, this year in particular, just getting to this point has been really, really tough. But thanks to the determined effort of the organisation and indeed the belief and support of the competitors, we're back, and it's big. This is the 49th edition of the race. with 347 boats due to start here tomorrow, and that's more than 3,000 sailors. But this year's also about change, with the finish now in Cherbourg. So there's plenty to talk about.
Carrément, écoute, les conditions sont plutôt ventées, 25-30 nœuds là jusqu'à la sortie du Solent. On va essayer de gagner comme la fois d'avant, ça c'est sûr. On a le bateau et l'équipage pour. Il y a des bonnes conditions, on va essayer de mettre la poignée dans le coin et puis on fera les scores à l'arrivée.
So the course is very simple. We start here from Cos and we have to go to Fastnet Rock and come back to Cherbourg. Heavy wind for the start, upwind, tacking. Yes, we have the same competitors than 2 years ago with the same boats actually. The old Massif and the Sodebo. It's the first time we start upwind like that with high wind. So it should be interesting for the performance of the boats.
On the other side of the channel, Eric de Turckheim is the Vice Commodore of the Royal Ocean Racing Club, and he's also competing in his boat Teasing Machine, which many people will be familiar with. I spoke to him a few days ago, and I started by asking him whether he was surprised at the turnout for this year.
No, I'm not surprised because the Fastnet race is not only historically a race where an extraordinary race for any sailor. They always dreamt of doing the Fastnet at least once. So I'm not surprised at all. You see a lot of boats which on the Fastnet year do the qualification and participate to the Fastnet, and they will do that essentially on a Fastnet year. When you see the number of participants to the Rock races pre-Fastnet, we have a significant higher number in all the races in a Fastnet year.
Now, someone who knows both sides of the channel extremely well is solo sailor Sam Davies, and she's famous on both sides of the channel. And she's going to be sailing her Mocha 60 double-handed, Initiative Cur. And I spoke to her the other day about how much of an impact she thought that Cherbourg would have on this race.
Well, it's definitely going to help us because we're going to be able to get off and have a beer at the end of the race. And if it had been a finish in Plymouth this year, we wouldn't be able to do that. So I'm not sure whether I said if we finish on the podium, we'll bring the boat in and celebrate. But I think we might have a plan to stop anyway for a night in Cherbourg. And but yeah, definitely all the French. I think a lot of the French teams will definitely make the most of finishing in Cherbourg to stop and pit stop and have a beer and a steak frites and celebrate the end of the race that way. So yeah, shame for I guess there'll probably be some Brits that do that. The Fastnet race, and that's why it's such a great. Well, apart from the fact that I'm British and I love that race, and I've done it since I was 19 years old. It's a great race as well because we're sailing around the coast, heading towards the weather systems that are coming towards us generally. So it means that we're guaranteed to have a lot of different conditions, and that's what makes it so exciting and interesting. And you're never going to be bored in a Fastnet race, and you're always going to finish completely knackered because there's so many sail changes.
This was the scene today off the south coast of England. As one of the most famous and revered events in offshore yachting, the Rolex Fastnet race got underway from Cowes. It is considered to be one of the greatest challenges in sport, and the conditions at the start for the 300-strong fleet in this 49th edition lived up to its reputation. The multi-hulls were the first to go. Amongst the leaders, the 2019 multi-hull race record holder Maxi Edmund Rothschild. Next, it was the turn of the fastest monohulls. Rambler 88 from the USA, aiming for their third consecutive line honours victory. But this year, facing stiff opposition, from the brand new 140-foot Supermaxi Scorpios. And then the remaining yachts in this impressive fleet. From racers to classics, down to the smallest at just 30 feet. On the water, more than 2,000 sailors from 31 countries, professional and Corinthian, experienced and novice, encompassing the egalitarian spirit of this legendary race. From here the fleet will head west along the south coast of England, out and around the Fastnet Rock off southern Ireland, and back towards the Isles of Scilly. And this time, instead of turning into Plymouth, the fleet will head east to the new finish line in Cherbourg, France, extending the race to 695 nautical miles. With a strong prevailing westerly, the next 24 hours will prove challenging. Join us again for more updates from the 49th edition of the Rolex Fastnet race.
Getting windy again here at Cowes. Matt Sheehan's out on the B&G commentary rib. What are conditions like now, Matt?
Yeah, they've sort of stayed pretty much the same. We've got gusts so far up to 27 knots, steady sort of mean speed at about 22 knots, so not too bad really. I mean, it looks pretty wild. I think the sea state's going to get a little bit livelier when that tide turns and heads to the west, but for the time being doesn't look too bad, does it, Abby? What's your take on it as you look up to windward?
No, definitely it's nice now with the sun popping its head out, but I think that the big thing that's going to come into play is sea state as soon as that tide turns, and particularly when they get down to the Needles, the sea state's looking particularly good. And as Dee touched on in that interview, I mean, getting sleep in this first day, I mean, it's going to be critical, but for those short-handed teams, trying to sleep in slamming conditions upwind is going to be really hard.
Do you think they're, I mean, I've been saying I was expecting the old teams in particular to start on the pin end. From a tactical point of view, do you think that's the case, or do you think they might, because we're seeing Gitana down by the squadron end, we've got Sodebo out here. What do you think their thinking is?
I think given that it's an upwind start, it's really about getting a clean position. You're not looking for that tactical best start. It's really just space. I mean, these boats just need space to get going. Obviously takes them a fair amount of time to tack, so it's all about probably getting longest lay for each tack and most time and space.
Open your eyes, what can you see around? Wind of the open sky, over the siren sound.
3000. Il est à 25 nœuds. Il a l'air hyper long, hyper bas, dit Morgan. Depuis le début du bord, on est revenu énorme.
Il va nous manquer quelques heures pour être vraiment au contact. Donc là, on espère encore qu'il va se passer de mist à l'arrivée. Je préférerais être à sa place que la nôtre pour gagner la régate, si tu veux, à l'heure actuelle. Ce que je veux dire, c'est que dans le sud, ça s'inverse avant, même si on va pas dans les hauts fonds. D'accord. Tu parles du banc ici, là.
Pour à la flotte, tu veux te placer au vent ou sous le vent?
Autant être au vent. Après, s'il y a une grosse bagarre de bateau là, oui, on passera au-dessus, on verra. À la sortie là, du Solent. Là, on va passer à droite, c'est-à-dire on laisse le banc à bâbord. D'accord?
Well, here they go. They just, Massif has just started to pull the trigger, so Sodebo, they accelerated and just slowed down a little bit.
Léger refus dans le Génac.
Pip here with me too, Vendée Globe star of course, and Pip, just seeing them out there in the ocean is incredible, isn't it?
Oh, they are just amazing machines. What I was just reflecting on here is actually how difficult it is during this starting period, because the boats travel so quickly. The Solent in reality is a really small area for them. They belong in the ocean, and certainly I've found with my Mocha trying to dodge other boats, trying to keep at a sensible speed in the build up to the start is actually one of the most difficult things.
Louis, we are under half an hour away from the first start. We've touched on the new finish at Cherbourg already, but what difference do you think it's going to make on that final run to the line?
Well, the very interesting area is going to actually be before that, around the Channel Islands,
Right.
but there's a lot of tide there. So it's very difficult to fully predict when you're going to get there. You could get there and have 6 knots of tide pushing you towards Cherbourg, or you could have 6 knots pushing against. So it's a very big tidal gate, and the competitors aren't really going to know until they get nearer that which way to go. So there'll be some very last-minute tactical decisions made, probably on the approach. Literally, as they leave the Fastnet Rock, they'll be thinking, what's the tide going to be doing down at Alderney? Would that be a fair thing to say?
Yeah, they'll be looking at that really closely, and I think we could see some quite differing tactics as well.
It sounds to me like we're going to see some lead changes right near the line there, Matt. What do you think about that, the tactics going into Cherbourg?
Well, yes, as they were saying, I mean, it's tide, it's the exclusion zone, it's the light weather coming through. It's going to be tricky, there's no question. And the more people I spoke to, the more I realised that no one really has the answer yet. Obviously, as we keep saying, it's the first time that we would have seen this, so there isn't a form guide to look. And to be honest, there's not really many, there are some, but there's not many events that finish in Cherbourg that take people through that way. I know when I spoke to Sam Davies the other day, and we were doing some interviews, and she was saying, I can't remember the name of the race now, but she won it, and she was talking about going into Cherbourg. But there's not a lot of races nowadays that go that way, that finish from the west and go into Cherbourg. I think that's right, isn't it, Abby? It's not
I
many.
think you're right, yeah. It may have been the Dream Cup that finishes in Cherbourg, but yeah, as you said, there's not many that would come out of the west. Traditionally, you'd be racing around that French coast. But yeah, it's as you said, a very hard forecast, very light through the midweek, and it's almost like you're going to see a race restart middle of the week.
Funny enough, we are once again alongside Gitana that keeps either written there stalking us. But we're out towards the outer end of the line, and it is starting to perk up a little bit now in the sea state. It's getting quite wet out here. Just looking at the tidal vector on our B&G Vulcan 7. And it's just on the turn now out here, so I'm expecting it to get quite lumpy over the next hour or so. But other than that, the breeze has sort of stayed steady really out here. 27 knots as a peak, and an average of about 23, 24 knots.
So it's 5 minutes to go now until the Rolex Fastnet Race 2021 gets underway. 350 entries, 24 nations taking part in this 49th edition of the race, which is fast approaching its centenary, which will be in 4 years' time. Hugo Boss splashing around there. They won't be starting at 11:10. They are yet to come, but what a great sight that is. It's such a mean machine, isn't it, Pip, whenever you see Hugo Boss?
It really is. It looks so impressive. And Alex is sailing this year with his boat captain.
Ollie here.
Ollie, yeah, which is great.
Interesting there to see Maserati getting a bit back wind off there of Gitana. Do you think that might be a tactic? That's the way they slow themselves down?
Potentially, yes, yeah, because it ideally wouldn't be an ideal position to sit in. So if they're kind of using that turbulence, then that's quite clever. But they'll all be using their navigation systems they would have pinged the line already. They'll know exactly how many meters to go. We can see Sadebo really winding it up in the back there.
Interesting, yes. Sadebo looks at full chat going for the line. We have Rothschild going a little bit slower.
Here we go then, the start of the Rolex Fastnet Race 2021. The next gun you will hear will be the start, and Matt Sheehan out on the B&G commentary rib. Who have you got there?
We've got Sadebo, and they've got their foot to the floor with 5 seconds to go. They're coming up on port tack. They're the fastest of the multi-hulls at this end of the line.
All clear.
There goes the gun for the start of the Rolex Fastnet Race, and the 2 quickest out of the traps, I'd say, would be Sadebo at the outer end and Gitana down by you guys.
Oh, it's an amazing sight, isn't it, as they head off on this race, heading off through the Solent and then down to Land's End and the Fastnet Rock. Maserati just lifting up there, and Sadebo with very distinctive green and white and black hulls getting underway as well. Pip Hare, who's caught your eye on that start?
Well, I mean, Edmund de Rothschild from here is just, look at it go, it's just incredible. just eating up the Solent. They're going to be out the needles before we know it.
And Louis, looking further up the line, they're quite spread out down the line there.
Well, I've got to pick out Argo here. They've got a cracking start if you look at their nearest competition, Maserati. It's also interesting to see the different styles. Argo isn't as heeled as much, and the most efficient way to race that is just to have the middle hull just out of the water. Maserati, I think they're having problems because they're seesawing a little bit with those foils in the seat state. So early indication, we see Maserati lifting and then going down, lifting and going down. Argo seems to be much smoother, but as you say, Edmund de Rothschild, what a start that was. That was hair-raising.
A spray is flying as the Rolex Fastnet race is underway. Sadebo and Maserati and Edmund de Rothschild leading them away to the west as they try to leave the Solent as soon as possible. Matt, who are you with now?
Well, that was an amazing start by Sadebo, really. I mean, they were so confident with their timing. They had their foot pressed to the floor. They were the first by a long way to actually accelerate in towards that line and absolutely smoked it off. They're now just off Stansor Point. That's how small the Solent is when you're doing 25 knots upwind. Pretty impressive, Abby, wasn't it, that start?
Yeah, very impressive. I think, as you said, we're only, 2 minutes after the start, and Sadebo is already approaching the mainland shore, so she'll be tacking pretty soon. I think those boats that have really snuck up to the squadron end of the line are really going to pay dividends here. But yeah, you can see timing-wise, I mean, that's amazing. It's almost 2 to 3 minutes, and they're across the Solent. It's going to be a lot of short tacking.
They're going to be putting in a tack soon, and of course the first cross is going to be very interesting and revealing. Obviously there's almost 700 miles still to go, but it's going to be interesting when Sadebo does tack and they come across on starboard. I suspect, looking at it, Abby, it looks to me like Chitana is actually going to clear them. They're going to be clear ahead, aren't they?
I think so, just from the slightly better start, I would say, in terms of being higher up the line, closer to the breeze on that port tack, whereas Sadebo was slightly further down the line towards the outer distance, just by, marginal lengths, really. But there she goes, she's tacked now, so moment of truth as she comes back, but looking like she's going to be behind Chitana.
Yeah, definitely the best starts for those boats who are here at the squadron. Sadebo tacking and just gathering speed again now, but really great sight here at Cowes for all of the spectators and everybody watching online, as well as the multi-hulls get underway.
Well, we've certainly got plenty to talk about out this end. One boat that's caught my eye is 11th Hour Racing. That's Simon Fisher, sci-fi to his mates, and Justine Metro, I think he's sailing with, isn't he, Abby? They're sailing this double-handed in this Imoca 60. And we've got them out here. We've got Arkea Paprec, who's out here as well, and we've got some of the older generation Imoca 60s as well out here. So we've got quite a mix, and I think, as we've been sort of saying all along so far, yes, there are tactical benefits of being one end of the line to the other, but to be honest, the big picture is getting out of the Solent cleanly, and that means getting clear air and having the space to be able to just play your own game.
So that is the 4-minute preparatory signal for the Imoca 60s and Class 40. They are starting in 4 minutes' time, and they're getting ready. We've got a few in with us here, Pip, but what do you think of how they're spread out?
Yeah, so in general, definitely you can see the foilers seem to be at the other end of the line where there's a bit more room. Right in front of the squadron here, we've got Group Apperseal, which is one of the non-foiling boats, and that's one I would watch, actually. That's being sailed by Damien Sagan and Benjamin Detroux. Both of them had incredible results in the Vendée in non-foiling boats. And I think with the first 24 hours being hard upwind, then we're not going to see that much benefit to the foilers initially. So down the other end of the line, we can also see Hugo Boss, and I think Alex has unfinished business in that boat, so he's really, really going to be putting his foot down for this race. And Charal as well, sort of same story, really.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out as well that in that Class 40 fleet, there's a hell of a lot of passion involved there. I mean, there are people who want to go and do the Vendée and whatever, but there's some amazing passionate sailors in the Class 40s, aren't there, Pip?
Oh, Class 40, yes. And again, we've got quite a range of boats. From first generation boats, the first bow number in Class 40 we've got racing is 23. So that was one of the original Class 40s. And then all the way up to Eden Red, which is bow number 165. That's a fourth generation Sam Manoir design. Only launched this year, and Sam Manoir himself is actually sailing on that boat.
And we've got Hugo Boss, an incredible machine, and as you say, unfinished business from retirement for the Vendée. Ollie here on board. Ollie is at Switzerland. He's the boat captain. He knows the boat inside out, but I think the last time he did this race was in Pata Negra, a slightly different monohull.
Yeah, it's interesting, sort of, for those that aren't familiar with the position of boat captain. Boat captain is sort of effectively the non-racing skipper of the boat, so they're the people who do all the deliveries, who kind of know the boat arguably sometimes better than the skipper. So this is a really good pairing, I think.
So a minute 30 to go until they start bouncing around on the chop here in the Solent, but looking great, and it's going to be a great spectacle. This, Matt and Abby, who have you got right now?
Well, we're out, as I say, out near the pin end. We got 11th Hour Racing. We've also got a Pivia, who I did see earlier on. I can't remember who's sailing a Pivia actually, but that's definitely a boat to be watching, because that's one of the new generation as well. Got some amazing foils if you want to get nerdy on that boat. Incredible foils they've got.
So a Pivia is Charlie Dallan and Paul Mayat.
Right. Yeah.
So Paul obviously sailed with Sam last year, and Charlie got a second in the Vendée.
50 seconds to go. Eden Reds, Pip talking about there, just tacking and getting a bit more boat speed, and sail flapping on Hugo Boss. It is important to get a good start. It's most important, Pip, not to be on the wrong side of the start line.
Yes, you've got to get that balance. I mean, there's definitely a victory in feeling like you were fastest across the line, but yeah, big penalty to pay, especially in such a big start like this with so many other boats. If you're over, then that's going to have a massive impact on the rest of your race.
And nearest the line, we've got Hugo Boss by about a boat length, I would say.
Here's the final countdown from the race officers, checking if anybody is on the course side. Hugo Boss powering in now to the line, Matt.
Indeed, yes, but just there goes the gun for
all clear.
Their start. All clear. Well, that's good. Interesting to see a lot more conservative start here. Bigger fleet. Conservative in the sense that there were more boats that chose to start on starboard, and already we can see that those that are getting punchy and started on port down at your end of the line are clearly ahead of those that have taken a more cautious route and started on starboard, including 11th Hour, Pivia, Charal, and several others.
And a cracking start in the Class 40 for Project Rescue Ocean, Alex Trahin.
He's just dipped Hugo Boss, but he was absolutely flying off that line on port. And in the Class 40s, we've got a really tight grouping for boats to watch at the front. There's 5 to really watch: Project Ocean Rescue, Courier Redman, Lamotte Module Creation, which is a third generation boat sailed by Luke Berry, but he can keep that up with the fourth generation boats. And then we also have Banque de Leyman, which is sailed by Valentine Gauthier and Simon Costa, and I think all of these guys will be really close.
Well, Project Ocean Racing, we're just seeing there with a great start. Hugo Boss now tacking. Okay.
Yeah, he's going off on his port tack, and he should be, by the looks of it, he's really nicely clear ahead of the rest of the IMOCAs there, so he's got a nice long tack up there. It's interesting to see the Class 40s really holding pace with the IMOCAs in these conditions. So in the IMOCA, I think it's going to be a tight race until they get to their reaching conditions. So the first 24 hours, I think there's not going to be a huge difference across the fleet. But when we start seeing reaching conditions, then obviously we'll see the foilers pulling ahead, and the 2020 generation foilers, so Charal, Hugo Boss, Pivia, Arkea Paprec, those are the ones I'm expecting to see pull ahead. But 11th Hour Racing, I'm actually just looking at them. I don't know if they have a bit of a problem, because they are not heading quite in the same direction as the rest of the fleet. but they are also have proven to be a super fast boat, so I would have been watching them for sure.
Hugo Boss getting off, and the next starters will be IRC 0, the big boys in the monohull class IRC 0, but off go the Mockers and class 40s for their start. We saw Hugo Boss with the spray flying. Just looks absolutely fantastic. Now, all things are relative, aren't they, Matt? Because normally we would be saying that Rambler was the giant, but just not today.
Yeah, absolutely. But as we say, it's they're confident. They know that, as we say, they know their boat. We spoke to George David and indeed one of the other highly experienced people on board, Brad Butterworth, yesterday at the press conference, and they seem calm, collected, looking forward to the race, and yeah, they'll be one to watch, that's for sure.
And Abby, we've got lots of Volvo boats here, obviously. Who should we be looking out for?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, Bauer Becking skippering Sailing Poland, the Austrian Ocean Race project. So most of these teams have come out of the Ocean Race Europe, which happened just a month or so ago. Whether they've had a slightly different crew changes, who knows? But I'm sure they'll be all be vying for the podium of the Volvo 65 fleets in this race, and it's their conditions. I mean, these boats love going upwind. They're heavy boats, and yeah, this is almost a perfect forecast for them.
It is indeed.
So a minute and a half to go until these big boats get underway. For you, Louis, who else should we look out for?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely got to say Tala, David Collins, boat in IRC 52, third overall 2019. Might not be TP weather, but we'll see. Oyster Catcher, 35, Richard Matthews, new boat for Runa, Jens Kellinghusen's Curve 56. And Teasing Machine, Eric de Turkheim, the Rortweiss Commodore with his 54-footer. Wow, I mean, you know, it's still right up there, the level of the competition through the multi-hulls, through the Mockers, through the Class 40s, and now into IRC 0, which often produces the overall winner of the Rolex Fastnet race.
Well, look, here comes Scorpios in towards us at the squadron, but it's Rambler closer to the line, Matt.
It is indeed, and they're actually just putting their bow down a little bit because I think they thought they got a bit too close to the line. The tide is now sweeping to the west as they come in the last 20 seconds in towards the start. They put their bow down, they got behind the line, they're now just slowing down a little bit, and now they're starting to wind it up as they head towards the squadron.
Final countdown from the race officers here. Let's see if they're all clear as they start their race. And they're all clear, so Rambler crosses, Matt, with a great start there.
Yeah, absolutely superb start. They really got that, hit that on the button. Their time on distance into the line was really good. They've accelerated out the other side. Meanwhile, the big boat that we've been looking for, the big sort of benchmark, Scorpius, choosing to play it safe, held back, and they're starting at the back of the pack, but I don't think that'll last very long. They're going to be smoking their way through this fleet.
Sailing Poland just tacking with their red sails and coming up behind them, and also tacking Scorpios. Pip, what a sight.
It's magnificent, isn't it? And when you look at the mast height compared to all of the others, it absolutely dwarfs everything that's out there. We see Sailing Poland now, I think they were going down to, I didn't think they were crossing Rambler 88. They just put a dip in, looked like they were going to go behind, but Rambler's tack now. And Sailing Poland is looking in really good shape. The one reef seems to be paying off for them.
Yeah, Rambler R88 tacking with the grey hull there, heading off to the west. A great start for them, but it looks to me, Louis, like Scorpios is catching up a bit.
Yes, what a machine, and just remember, it's 23 tons with all that sail area, but I'm amazed how heeled over she is with those reefs in. That's looks a little bit too heeled over for me.
Yeah, certainly angle of heel is quite important in these conditions, and they do look very heeled.
So Matt, who's looking good there, Rambler?
Yeah, we're just Rambler smoking away out the front of the fleet, got the best start hit the line at speed on time. But Abby, I'm just looking out at just to leeward of Rambler is a Volvo 65 by the looks of it, blue sails. I'm not quite sure what that boat is. Because they made a good start as well, didn't they?
Yeah, indeed they did. I think that's the Austrian race project, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
they look like they've got 2 reefs in their main. They've got a J2 jib on. They were slightly shy of the squadron end of the line, but have obviously got clean air and are just flying ahead. Interesting the different sail choices between her and also her sister ship, the Sailing Poland with the red sails that we talked about earlier, how different they are in terms of how much mainsail area they have. So yeah, great start by that team.
Lady First 3 of the French boats getting underway, but they're chasing those who started a bit earlier. Rambler RE88 with the Solent spray flying over the bow there. Plenty of crew out on the rail, and a great start for Rambler.
And will George David finally get his windy fastnet? They at the press conference, Grant Butterworth joked the breeze is going to die at the end, because it always has. Maybe this is the one when Rambler absolutely flies like a blur into Cherbourg to take line honours ahead of the bigger boat.
Sail Polands with the red sails had a good start as well, heading off with Rambler, and Scorpios still heeling over a fair bit there. It's a huge monohull in IRC 0 in the chop, and these strong conditions for the start of the 49th Rolex Fastnet race. It's Rambler USA 25555 with the best start there. Can you still see them, Matt?
Well, funnily enough, we're just making our way around the back of a car transporter, which is just tucking around West Bramble at the moment, so we've lost a bit of visual on a few things just for the moment, but it'll be through in a couple of minutes.
Just to tell you that Rambler 88 may be looking at trying to break the record. We'll be setting a new one for this course, but the average for the old course was 14.26 knots, and I bet you they've got that number written downstairs.
So we saw Scorpios and Rambler there, and we got one of these Spanish entrants is Hyper Ocean Racing, number 7, but it's a great sight that with Rambler and Scorpios.
Amazing.
I think the really striking thing is just how comfortable these boats look in these conditions. You know, they were built for bigger seas and big breeze, and you know, you look at Rambler and it just looks like it's meant to be in these conditions. It's not bothered by sea state at all. It looks very comfortable.
Yeah, and just to tell you that the skipper for Scorpios is Fernando Echevarri. He's an Olympic gold medalist in the Tornado, is Spanish. Brad Jackson, Tony Mutter from New Zealand, and also Xavier Fernandez from Spain. An all-star cast on that boat. That's just a few pickouts.
So off they go, and 26 on that start. We have got 56 in the next start, which will be IRC1 and the Figaro boats. So many more taking part in the next start. They will be heading off across the start line in under 10 minutes time. But yeah, great to see those big sails heading up to the West, Matt.
It is indeed. It's classic, isn't it? Just, we keep saying it, but it is. And yeah, it'd be lovely to see what it looks like from the air, and I'm sure you can see that from the helicopter shots that you're getting. And I just wonder also where the big multi-hulls are, whether they've actually got close to the needles yet or not. But obviously we can't see them from that end, but from this end rather. But quite a gathering out at this outer end of the line. And actually, as the huge car carrying ship Polaris Highway turned the corner and went through and headed to the east, it did just occur to me that whilst there might be quite a lot of skippers and crews, a bit of anxiety about today, getting it underway, just, I guess we should spare a thought for the captain of a ship like that being told that he's got to come out on boisterous conditions and through a fastnet start going the other way. That'll get you pretty nervous as well, I reckon.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's really nobody down this end of the line. I thought there might be at least one sort of cheeky person sort of hanging out at this end, but no, they're all now sort of bearing away, trying to make sure that the tide doesn't push them over the line. But also remembering there's a limited runway, because if they get to this end too early, there's kind of nowhere to go, because they'll end up having to go back against the fleet on port, and that would look pretty messy.
There's certainly out towards the outer end of the line, people are just marching down this line and bearing off a little bit just to make sure they stay behind it. That in itself is quite tricky. A big gust just come through, 28, 29 knots of breeze that's just come through here. But Storm Vogel looking really very comfortable out here, isn't she, Abby? She starts at the pin end, she's strapped down, everybody looks relaxed, and they're just going for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's watching the comparison between Storm Vogel and these Figaro 3s who are sort of mid-line, sails flapping, just trying to time their start. Yeah, what a different scenario we're looking at here.
All clear on that start, 4921 with a good start there. Eno XXX we were speaking about with Loué earlier on.
Absolutely cracking start from James Neville and the team there. Nice controlling position for the boats inside of them as well. That was an absolute textbook start, Pip.
Yeah, really, really good, and they've got clean air, they're going the right direction, it couldn't get better than that.
562 sailplane had a good one as well. Who have you got, Matt?
We are just behind I can't even say that name, I'm not quite sure. 7445, quite an unusual looking boat, just coming in towards the line. But it's really the boat that has just been caught my attention for the whole of that start was Storm Vogel. If ever there was a boat that looked, I mean, we talked about the big boats looking comfortable, and indeed they did, but Storm Vogel just really just loving it, just strapped down, sending it on starboard, looking around going, don't see what all the fuss is about. Seems fine to us.
Amanjiwo, I think, was the one you had there.
That'll be it. That'll be the one.
And off they go, IRC1 and the Figaro's away on the Rolex Fastnet Race 2021. Another great spectacle as we get these various starts underway. We're into the IRC classes now. Now we are seeing pictures from Hurst Castle now, and we've got a trimaran racing past Hurst Castle and heading for the Needles. And well, it was
that's Argo, Simon.
You were mentioning them earlier on, weren't you?
Are they first out?
I don't know. I do not know. Let's see if we can see as the camera pans around. We'll see if they can see any multi-hulls ahead of them. But yeah, it's strong conditions there as they head away from the Isle of Wight, and they're being chased there by Sodebo.
Sodebo, there we go. So we've got one Mod 70 ahead of an old team. So that's, I don't know, one glass of fizzy.
We don't know. What we don't know is whether Argo is the first to pass that point. But we're getting pictures from Hurst Castle now.
Amazing,
Matt, and it was Argo in front of Sodebo as they bounce their way west.
And we're getting an idea of the sea state outside the Solent, because obviously we're in pretty protected waters here. It does funnel in at Hurst, but once you get out into the English Channel there, Pip, it's going to be a bit of sea state, eh?
Yes, absolutely, and particularly at the Needles, the tide rushing through there and the wind accelerating, you get standing waves off the Bridge Buoy, which are really quite dangerous. And hard to tell from that footage, but it looked to me like the trimarans might have been opting for the North Channel, so to the north of the shingles, where you'd expect the water to be a bit flatter.
The breeze has perked up to 28, 29 knots, and looking down towards the western Solent, there's another big rain shower rolling through, and this one's going to spread. No one's going to escape this one, because this is coming straight down the middle of the Solent, looking quite wet, and I suspect it's got a little touch more breeze under it as well.
45 seconds to go now until IRC4 gets underway. 72 yachts entered on this start, and still to come after them we'll have IRC3 and IRC2. 30 seconds, says the race officer here at the squadron. Racing, of course, organised by the Royal Ocean Racing Club in this 49th edition of the Rolex Fastnet race. And all of the video pictures you can find on the official website, rolexfastnetrace.com. It will have video clips and all the positions and the interviews and the video clips at the end in Cherbourg.
Really competitive start here.
Great starts for, I think there's a Sigma out there, but here on Port Tag, it's one of the Dutch boats, 9119, has had a good start.
Yeah, that was a spectacular sport. I was kind of waiting to see if somebody would give that a go, and they got their timing absolutely perfect, and they are miles ahead of everyone.
Out on the outer end of the line, we've got the boat that really took my eye, that made a very nice, comfortable start, was Winsome. No stranger to this race, Winsome, the Dutch boat, 118. I'm just trying to remember who owns that boat. I'm sure I know them, I just can't quite remember who
Harry
they are.
Heist.
That's, of course it is, Harry Weiss, who has done well, plenty of Fastnets, but nicely settled down. This boat is a boat from the 70s and loves this kind of weather, just slices its way upwind. Made a very nice start indeed.
4489 Finish Line have had a good one as well, and I'm sure I saw a Sigma sail logo in there. We've got some tacking down here near Cowes Castle as a J10 is it Rum and Cork just tacking there.
2,000 sailors from 31 countries, professional and Corinthian, experienced and novice, encompassing the egalitarian spirit of this legendary race. From here the fleet will head west along the south coast of England, out and around the Fastnet Rock off Southern Ireland, and back towards the Isles of Scilly. And this time, instead of turning into Plymouth, the fleet will head east to the new finish line in Cherbourg, France, extending the race to 695 nautical miles. With a strong prevailing westerly, the next 24 hours will prove challenging. Join us again for more updates from the 49th edition of the Rolex Fastnet race.
Sailing Poland, a Volvo 70, formerly Puma, is currently in place number 1. But there's a long way to go.